Welcome back, everybody. We're diving into Veer, Baal, Diwas today. And this was really interesting, especially for those of you getting ready for those UPSC exams.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've got a whole bunch of news articles and
Yeah.
government press releases about what's been going on with Veer, Baal, Diwas recently. And
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff.
yeah, there's a lot to unpack.
What I find really interesting is how Prime Minister Modi has really made this more than just a day to just remember,
Right.
It's really become like a platform to kind of showcase his vision for the future of India.
Okay.
And the youth especially play a big role in that.
So maybe let's start with the basics then, for anyone listening who's not familiar.
Sure.
What is Veer, Baal, Diwas, and why is December 26th so important?
Veer Baal Diwas translates to Brave Children's Day.
Okay.
And it commemorates the martyrdom of the Sahibzodes, who were the four sons of the 10th Sikh Guru Gobind Singh.
Okay.
And on December 26th in 1705, the two younger sons, Zorawar Singh and Fateh Singh, they were just 7 and 9 years old at the time.
Oh, wow.
They were bricked alive
Oh, gosh.
on the orders of the Mughal governor.
That's a really harrowing story.
Yeah.
That must have been such a defining moment in Sikh history.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
A powerful symbol of courage and resistance, particularly for Sikhs. It speaks to that Sikh principle of standing up for what you believe in,
Right.
even when you're facing incredible adversity. The Sahibzads' unwavering faith and sacrifice has become a core part of the Sikh identity.
Yeah.
And, inspires generations.
And it seems like Prime Minister Modi is tapping into that imagery, and he's calling Veer, Baal, Diwas a festival of inspiration.
He is.
Particularly for young people.
And I think for UPSC aspirants, it's really important to recognize that connection between these events in history and how they're interpreted now today.
Yeah.
Prime Minister Modi's message is going beyond just remembering. He's really positioning this day as a call to action for young Indians.
Right.
To kind of embrace that spirit of the Sahibzads and to contribute to building a developed and Manirvar Bharat,
Okay.
which means a self-reliant India.
So that's a really interesting link that he's making there.
Right.
So how is he actually putting this message into action?
Well,
He mentioned some policies and initiatives. So.
oh, he did. And this is where it gets really interesting for anyone who wants to understand how the government is approaching this whole idea of empowering young people. One initiative that really stands out is the Poshet Gram Panchayat Abhiyan.
Okay.
This program aims to tackle malnutrition, which is a big problem in India.
Right.
And it basically turns it into a competition between villages or gram panchayats.
So you're incentivizing communities to improve their nutrition.
Exactly.
And I'm guessing the villages that do well get rewarded?
Exactly. It's like a positive reinforcement system at the community level, encouraging everyone to work together and have some healthy competition. And, this kind of program could be a game changer, especially in those rural areas where malnutrition is the highest.
Right.
And for those preparing for the UPSC, understanding these initiatives and how they work is super important.
Okay.
You might even be asked to analyze how effective they are,
Right.
compare them to other countries' programs, or even discuss what could go wrong.
So it's not just about memorizing the name of the program.
No.
But really understanding the nuances
Exactly.
for those UPSC exams.
Exactly.
What other initiatives did he talk about?
Well, another one that's worth mentioning is the Adel Tinkering Labs.
Okay.
And these are being set up in schools all over India to really create a culture of innovation and problem solving for young people.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Giving kids the tools and resources to just experiment and tinker.
Yeah.
It's a great way to get the creativity flowing.
Absolutely. And this ties in really well with this whole idea of Mera Yuva Bharat, which means my young India, something that Prime Minister Modi talks about a lot. It's all about encouraging young people to get involved and shape the development of the country.
It's like he's saying, don't wait for the future to come to you.
Exactly. To create it. Yes. And, this focus on empowering youth, it goes beyond just academics and innovation.
Okay.
Prime Minister Modi has also started things like Fit India and Khelo India,
Right.
which encouraged physical fitness and sports for everyone. And this recognizes how important it is for the nation to have healthy and active people.
Right. So it's like a holistic approach then.
Yes.
Looking at both physical and intellectual development of young people.
Exactly.
And it's really important for our UPSC folks out there.
Yes.
To understand how these things fit into the bigger picture of what the government is doing.
Absolutely.
How do they affect policy?
For example, they might ask you to analyze how these initiatives line up with things like the Sustainable Development Goals, or how they could affect India's economic growth and social progress.
So you really have to know more than just the surface level.
Yeah.
Like, how does this all connect to the bigger picture of India's development?
Right.
So we've talked about nutrition.
Yes.
We've talked about innovation and things like fitness and sports.
Yeah.
But Prime Minister Modi also made a pretty surprising announcement, didn't he?
He did.
He wants to bring 100,000 young people into politics.
Yeah.
And especially those who don't have a background in it.
That's a bold move.
That's a pretty bold move.
And for UPSC students, this is where it gets really interesting.
Right.
Because this could really change the Indian political scene. Imagine all these new young faces coming into politics with new ideas and new ways of looking at things.
New energy.
New energy, exactly.
It could really shake things up. But it could also be risky.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, these young people, they might not have the experience to deal with how complicated Indian politics can be.
That's a good point. And that's the kind of thinking that UPSC examiners are looking for.
Okay.
They want to see if you can weigh the good and the bad.
Right.
See things from different sides and come to your own informed opinion.
So you have to really dig deep.
Yeah.
And think about all the implications of something like this.
Exactly.
So how does he think this is going to happen? These young people aren't just going to magically appear in Parliament, right?
Of course not. He's launching a platform called the Viksit Bharat Young Leaders Dialogue to help make this happen. And the dialogue will be held on Swami Vivekananda's birthday, which is a very symbolic choice.
Yeah.
Remember, Swami Vivekananda was a huge advocate for young people.
Yeah.
He believed they had the power to change India. So this dialogue is meant to create a space for these young leaders to connect with policymakers, share their ideas, and help shape India's development.
So it sounds like he's setting the stage for this new generation of leaders.
Exactly.
And they might not be bound by the old ways of doing politics.
You got it. And this is important for UPSC aspirants to remember.
Okay.
Prime Minister Modi is tapping into this global trend of young people getting more involved in politics and government.
Yeah, we see that in other countries too.
Absolutely.
Young people are demanding a voice.
Yes, they want to say in shaping their future.
Right, and India, with its huge young population, is in a great position to take advantage of this.
Absolutely.
So Veer Diwas isn't just about remembering the past.
No.
It's about launching Prime Minister Modi's vision for the future of India.
Exactly.
But before we go too far into that, let's take a step back for a second and think about how important Veer Diwas is historically, especially for our UPSC folks who need to know their Sikh history. The story of the Sahibzads is really powerful.
Yes.
You know, it shows unwavering faith and courage against oppression. Can you tell us a bit more about the historical context of this event?
Of course, the martyrdom of the Sahibzads happened during a time of serious conflict between the Sikhs and the Mughal Empire.
Okay.
The Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb wanted to wipe out Sikhism, and he used some brutal tactics to try to do it.
Wow.
Guru Gobind Singh, the 10th Sikh guru, he became a symbol of resistance against the Mughals. He instilled values like courage, sacrifice, and righteousness, which are really at the heart of Sikhism.
So the sacrifice of the Sahibzads wasn't just some random event. It was part of this bigger fight for religious freedom.
Exactly.
And self-determination.
And that struggle is a deep part of being Sikh.
Right.
And for those taking the UPSC, it's important to understand not just the events, but how they affected the Sikh community and India as a whole.
So it's not just about knowing the dates and names, but about understanding what those events really mean.
Yes.
And how they still shape India's social and political scene.
Precisely, for instance, the concept of dharma, or righteous duty.
Okay.
It's central to why the Sahibzads made their sacrifice. They chose to stand by their faith and community, even when they were facing such horrible cruelty. And this idea of dharma is still a big topic in India today. It influences discussions on everything.
Wow.
From social responsibility to making ethical choices in politics and business.
It's amazing how these events from so long ago
I know.
still have such an impact on India today.
It is, and it's this connection between the past, present, and future that makes studying history so interesting, especially for those getting ready for those UPSC exams.
So we've gone from this heartbreaking story of the Sahibzads to Prime Minister Modi's vision for empowering young people.
Yeah.
It's amazing how looking into something like Veer, Baal, Diwas
I know.
can show us so much about a nation's past, present, and future.
Absolutely.
But before we finish this part of our deep dives, I want to go back to those initiatives for a minute.
Yeah.
And really dig into what they could mean.
That's a great idea. Let's take a closer look.
We were talking about Prime Minister Modi's initiatives and what they could mean, for our UPSC folks out there. This is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Let's start with the Suposhit Gram Panchayat Abhiyan.
Okay.
On the surface, it sounds like a great idea. Using competition to make positive change.
Yeah.
But are there any downsides to this approach?
That's a great question, and it's exactly the kind of thinking the UPSC wants to see. While it could be really effective, there are some potential issues to think about.
Okay.
For example, focusing only on competition.
Yeah.
Might make people focus too much on just hitting targets.
Right.
And maybe they'll forget about the root causes of malnutrition, like poverty, lack of health care, or bad sanitation.
So you have to look at the whole picture.
Exactly.
Not just quick fixes.
Right.
What about the Edel tinkering labs? They sound amazing, but can we really expect them to have a big impact on innovation across all of India?
That's another really important question.
Yeah.
The success of these labs will depend on a few things.
Okay.
Like enough funding, training teachers properly, and continued government support.
Right.
There's also the challenge of making sure everyone has access.
Yeah.
Especially in rural and remote areas where infrastructure might be lacking.
Right. So addressing that digital divide.
Yeah.
Making sure all students have the same opportunities.
Absolutely.
It's all about inclusivity and having access to resources.
Exactly.
Now let's talk about the Fit India and Kilo India movements.
Okay.
They're great for physical fitness and sports, obviously. But do they really address those deeper issues related to health and well-being?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Encouraging physical activity is super important. But we also have to think about the underlying things that make people unhealthy. Like malnutrition, lack of clean water and sanitation, and not enough healthcare facilities.
So these initiatives should be part of a bigger plan that tackles these systemic problems.
Absolutely. It's about taking a holistic approach to health.
Right.
Looking at the whole picture.
Now, the one I find most interesting is this call to bring 100,000 young people into politics.
Yeah.
It's bold.
It is.
And it could have huge consequences.
Right.
But let's play devil's advocate here.
Okay.
Some people might say it's more about looking good than actual change. What do you say to that?
That's a valid criticism.
Yeah.
And it's good to be a little skeptical. Just bringing young people in without fixing the problems in the political system itself might not get the results we want. However, it's a chance to bring in fresh perspectives and new energy.
Yeah.
The key is to give these young leaders support, mentorship, and training so they can navigate the complexities of politics.
Right. So it's about creating an environment where they can succeed.
Exactly.
And contribute effectively.
Give them the tools they need.
Yeah, not just throw them into the deep end. Now, for our UPSC folks out there, I think it's important to think about the historical parallels. We talked about the Sahibzads and their unwavering courage.
Right.
Do you see a connection between their story and this call for young people to step up and shape India's future?
Absolutely. Prime Minister Modi is making a direct connection between their sacrifice and the challenges India faces today. He's calling on young people to show that same courage, determination, and selflessness as they work towards a stronger and more prosperous nation.
It's a powerful message.
It is.
It's like he's saying you have a responsibility because of history.
Yeah.
And it's time for young people to rise to the occasion.
Exactly. And for those preparing for the UPSC.
This link between history and current events is crucial.
Right.
Understanding how historical events and people still shape today's discussions and policies is really important for doing well on the exam.
So it's not just about memorizing facts.
No.
It's about understanding how they're relevant today.
Yes.
It's about making those connections and seeing the bigger picture.
You got it.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
In this deep dive into Veer, Baal, Diwas, we started with the history of the day. Explored Prime Minister Modi's initiative and what they could mean.
Right.
And even talked about the bigger ideas of empowering young people leadership and how history shapes the future.
We looked closely at those initiatives.
Yeah.
Talked about what might work and what might not.
Right.
And even played devil's advocate to encourage critical thinking.
Exactly.
We also highlighted how important it is to understand historical events in their full context.
And how they relate to today's issues.
And for our UPSC aspirants out there.
Yes.
I think this deep dive has given you some valuable insights.
I hope so.
Into a topic that's likely to come up on the exam. Remember, it's not just about knowing the facts.
No.
But about being able to analyze things.
Yes.
Put them together and think critically.
Right.
It's about showing that you understand how history, politics, and society are all connected.
Exactly. And it's about being able to explain your arguments with evidence and analysis to back them up.
But before we wrap up this episode,
I
want to leave our listeners with something to think about. What role do you see yourself playing in shaping India's future?
That's a good question.
What are your hopes, your dreams, your goals?
Yeah.
And how can you, inspired by the spirit of Veer, Baal, Diwas, help build a nation that stands for courage, resilience, and progress?
Think about it, reflect on it, and let it guide you.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking discussions on all sorts of topics.
We'll be back soon.
We'll be back with another episode soon.
Yeah.
So stay tuned until then.
Keep learning.
Keep learning. Keep exploring.
And keep diving deep.
And keep diving deep.